Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, my name is Adilia Kasaputri and my name number is 1,882,050,054 and my lecturer is Mem Arif Fajar Isdiati M. Home. Okay, in this occasion, I will explain about translation of Sapardi Djoko Damono's poem into English. Let's get started. The first slide. Translation. In this addition to translating language, in the translation process, the translator must also to translate the culture content in the text. Therefore, the translator ability to understand the contents of the text and culture contents is highly demanded. So it can be said that the translator is a figure that cannot be underestimated compared to other literary genres. Poem can be considered the most difficult to translate because translators not only transfer meaning but also pay attention to the beauty of its form. Therefore, the translation of poem is relatively small and growth is slow compared to other literary genres, especially novels. Translating poem is a work rarely done by a translator, not only because in translating the poem, the translator must re-express the beauty of the original poetic text, but also because he has to re-express the meaning contained in the poem into the poem text of the target language. So, some people think translating poem is impossible because it is considered to replace the whole beauty of the original poetic text. Translation method of poem. Many translation method, techniques, or strategies can be used to translate text, but not all of the translation method, techniques, or strategies are subtitled using in translating poetry. According to Livy Fear in 1974, there are 7 translation strategies that can be used to translate poem, namely 1. Phonemic translation. The second is literal translation. Third, metric translation. 4. Translation of stanzas into prose. 5. Rhyming translation. 6. Person translation. 7. Interpretation translation. It was further said that phonemic translation, literal translation, and rhyming translation emphasize the poetic form or structure of a poem, while the translation of poem into prose, present translation, and interpretation translation emphasize the meaning of short form which would be transferred to the target poem. The whole strategy only emphasizes on one or several poetic components, whereas poem has a single element. If one element is not connected with other elements, the meaning of the result of the translation of poem as a whole will be damaged. The next slide. Equality in word level. Basically, equivalence is a basic concept in translation theory because in the translation process, the translator must look for the equivalent meaning between the source text and the target text. The equivalent in the target text is expect to be able to communicate the meaning or message contained or referred to in the source text. In the translation process, usually the translator We'll start by accounting the units and structure that exist in the source text into the target text. Many people assume that words they are smallest unit that has meaning, but in linguistics, the smallest unit that has meaning is morpheme. This was revealed by Hodge and Brown in Nababan in 2003. Morphemes are the smallest unit that have meaning that cannot be broken down into smaller units. Thus, it can be concluded that morpheme has only one element of meaning while word can have more than one element of meaning. Therefore, in the process of translation, it is possible to have an element of meaning symbolized by one word in a particular language, but it must be symbolized by several words in another language or vice versa. Example: the word tennis player in English is the equivalent of one word in Turkish, namely tennis. Instead, the type word in English is symbolized by three words in Spanish, namely the market máquina. Methodology. It is a descriptive qualitative study. The data source are the poem Sajak Orang Gila by Sapardi, Djoko, Damono, and its translation Ballad of a Crazy Man by John H. McCallin. The poem Sajak Orang Gila and its translation in English Ballad of a Crazy Man consists of 6 parts. In the parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, each consists of 2 stanzas, whereas section 6 consists of 3 stanzas. The poem overall has 30 stanzas. The total of lines in each stanza varies. The analysis units are words, expression, and sentence in all lines and verses of the poem. The steps taken by the author include 1. Perusing the poem in the research language to find out the meaning, understanding, and story in the poem. 2. Reading poem in the target language carefully to find out the meaning, understanding, and story in the poem. 3. Comparing poem in the source language and in the target language and determining the translation strategy used to translate the poem. 4. Draw conclusion whether poem in the target language has meaning, understanding, and a story that is commensurate with poem in the source language. Oke, next di sini ada gambaran dari Sajak Orang Gila, yaitu yang ditulis dari Sapardi Djoko Damono, dan di sebelahnya yaitu sama seperti yang di samping, hanya saja ini menggunakan bahasa Inggrisnya yang ditulis oleh John H. McCallin. The last slide. Conclusion. The translation of the Sajak Orang Gila into English Ballad of a Crazy Man has been done well by translator, although the literal translation strategy theoretically is cited to be inappropriate to translate poem. In fact, the translation of the poem Sajak Orang Gila is able to present poem which is poetic and interesting to read, although there are some discrepancies at the word level. It does not really affect the content of the poem. In general, the meaning of the source poem conveyed to the target poem. Mungkin itu saja yang dapat saya sampaikan pada presentasi kali ini. Terima kasih, see you the next video.